It was a fine day aboard the starship Grizzlethop's Gauntlet, a vessel that looked like it had been designed by a committee of indecisive jellyfish with a fetish for chrome. Captain Zlarthax Cromlink, a towering figure whose antennae twitched with perpetual irritation, was pacing the bridge. The Galactic Syndicate had called an emergency meeting to discuss the Earth problem, and he had been bullied into presenting the report. The bridge was abuzz with nervous energy as the Syndicate's message pinged through the comm system. Zlarthax cleared his throat, activating the ship's holographic projector, which flickered to life with a blurry image of the Syndicate Council chamber. On the other end, a motley assembly of alien species sat in their floating podiums, each species resembling a fever dream after too much fermented plankton. There was Chalkmore of the Slime Consortium, whose gelatinous form wobbled anxiously, Ambassador Plinksar of the Feathered Hierarchy, who was preening her multicolored feathers like a stressed parrot, and the ever-condescending Gravoth the Undeniable, a living boulder from the Titanic Cragglers. "Captain Cromlink," Gravoth boomed, his voice like tectonic plates having an argument. "You have 5 minutes to explain why we should concern ourselves with a primitive backwater. Make it quick. My people have a rock sculpting tournament to oversee." Zlarthax twitched. "Primitive, you say? I assure you, council members, there's nothing primitive about Earth. Allow me to demonstrate." With a dramatic flourish, he uploaded footage to the Syndicate's feed. The first clip showed an unassuming creature called a honey badger. The council snickered. "This?" Plinksar cawed. "This is your terrifying Earth species? It's adorable." The video continued. The honey badger tore into a cobra, took several venomous bites, passed out momentarily, then woke up and resumed eating the snake like nothing happened. The council chamber grew quieter. "That thing's terrifying," muttered Chalkmore, his gelatinous form quivering. "Oh, that's just the warm-up act," Zlarthax said with a sly grin. "Next, let's meet their chimpanzees." The footage changed to show chimps using tools, coordinating to hunt smaller primates, and flinging objects, sometimes at disturbing velocities. The objects were not always inanimate. Gravoth grumbled something about unnecessary use of fecal weaponry, but no one laughed this time. "And now," Zlarthax said, his grin widening, "the pièce de résistance, humanity itself." The screen filled with images of humans, small, hairless and unimpressive looking compared to most Galactic Syndicate species. The council seemed unimpressed until the montage of humans surfing tsunamis, diving from airplanes, and wrestling alligators began. Zlarthax was about to speak when he hit the jackpot. A viral video of a human strapping fireworks to a skateboard and launching himself over a pool filled with sharks. What?" Plinksar blinked, her beak gaping. "Why?" "No one knows," Zlarthax replied. "But the point is, they survive, they thrive, and they're getting ideas. Observe Project Apex." The feed switched to shaky footage from a Syndicate spy drone showing a top-secret Earth facility. Augmented creatures, bears with cybernetic limbs, wolves with enhanced intelligence, and a particularly horrifying octopus piloting a mech suit, were being trained for interstellar combat. "They're weaponizing their Death World fauna," Zlarthax said gravely. "And once they figure out how to launch these monstrosities into space, no civilization will be safe." The council erupted into chaos. Gravoth demanded a preemptive strike. Chalkmore suggested an embargo on all trade with Earth, which earned him confused looks because Earth traded nothing but conspiracy theories and reality TV broadcasts. Plinksar fainted dramatically and had to be revived with a spritz of space water. Zlarthax, enjoying the moment, let the chaos simmer before delivering the clincher. "Need I remind you that humanity's technological progress is exponential? They started with rocks and sticks, and now they're building machines that fly faster than sound. How long until they master faster than light travel? If we don't act, their cyber bears will be at our doorstep by the next galactic fiscal cycle. The syndicate chamber went silent. Gravoth finally rumbled. "What do you propose, Captain?" "A surgical strike," Zlathax said. "We infiltrate their Project Apex facility, eliminate their augmented creatures, and disable their research capabilities. It's the only way to ensure the safety of the galaxy." After some grumbling and posturing, the Council reluctantly agreed. The mission was authorized, and Zlathax was given command of a strike team. As the hologram flickered off, Zlathax turned to his crew. "Prepare the drop pods. We're going to Earth." A junior officer raised a hesitant appendage. "And sir, permission to ask a question?" "What? Have you ever been to Earth?" Zlathax's antennae twitched with annoyance. "Of course not." The officer exchanged uneasy glances with the others. "Well, good luck then, as..." The crew began preparations. Zlathax muttered to himself, "How bad can it be? They're just a bunch of primitive monkeys and overgrown rodents." Little did he know, Earth was about to show him just how wrong he was. The drop pod rattled like a tin can in a blender, each tremor reminding Captain Zlathax Cromlink why he hated field missions. The strike team around him, a mismatched group of syndicate operatives with varying numbers of limbs, eyes, and complaints, sat in uneasy silence. The atmosphere was heavy, not just with anticipation, but with the distinct odor of the Glorflaxian operative, whose species exuded a stress pheromone that smelled like rancid cabbage. "Could you not do that right now?" Zlathax snapped, glaring at the Glorflaxian. "Sorry, Captain." "It's involuntary," the operative muttered, his three stalk-like eyes drooping. The pod shuddered violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere, the heat shield glowing orange through the portholes. "The humans called this place a death world. For a reason," Zlathax reminded himself. Oceans that churned with apex predators, skies filled with turbulent storms, and terrain that ranged from blistering deserts to freezing tundras. And yet, humans thrived here, their obnoxious resilience matched only by their infuriating creativity. The comms crackled as the pilot's voice came through. "Captain, we're approaching the drop zone. Recon drones indicate high activity at the facility." Zlathax nodded. "Perfect. The sooner we disable Project Apex, the sooner we can get off this nightmare rock." The pod landed with a jarring thud, embedding itself into the soil outside the facility. The hatch hissed open, and the team disembarked, weapons ready. The landscape was deceptively serene, a dense forest with towering trees, sunlight filtering through the canopy, and the distant chirping of birds. It almost felt peaceful, until the bear arrived. It was one of the augmented creatures from Project Apex, a massive grizzly with cybernetic implants gleaming in the sunlight. Its eyes glowed red, and its claws were reinforced with what looked like tungsten alloy. The creature let out a guttural roar that reverberated through the trees, shaking the ground beneath their feet. "Engage!" Zlathax barked, diving for cover behind a boulder. The strike team sprang into action, unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts and kinetic rounds. The bear charged through the onslaught with alarming speed, shrugging off minor hits like they were insect bites. An operative armed with a shock lance managed to stab the creature, delivering a powerful electric jolt. It slowed for a moment, growling in annoyance, before swatting the operative like a rag doll. The poor soul flew through the air, landing somewhere in the next zip code. "This is not going well," shouted Vlex, the team's demolitions expert, a four-armed reptilian who was frantically attaching explosives to a tree. "I'm setting up a trap. Keep it busy." "Busy? It's trying to eat us," the Glorflaxian wailed, firing wildly and hitting everything except the bear. Zlathax, cursing under his breath, pulled out his graviton disruptor, a weapon designed for incapacitating large targets. He aimed, and carefully and fired, enveloping the bear in a shimmering field of distorted gravity. The creature struggled, its movements slowed as if wading through molasses. "Now, Vlex!" Zlathax shouted. Vlex detonated the explosives, causing a massive tree to crash down on the immobilized bear. The ground shook with the impact, and for a moment, silence returned to the forest. The team cautiously approached the downed creature, its glowing eyes flickering as it lay pinned beneath the tree. "Did we get it?" someone whispered. As if in answer, the bear let out a final defiant roar and activated a hidden mechanism in its chest. A drone shot out, buzzing toward the facility at breakneck speed. "It's sending a distress signal," Zlathax realized. "We've been compromised. Move now!" The team sprinted toward the facility, their boots pounding against the forest floor. The building came into view, a sprawling complex of concrete and steel, surrounded by high fences and patrolled by more augmented creatures. Zlathax spotted wolves with cybernetic enhancements and even a squadron of flying drones, piloted by what looked like squirrels. "Are you kidding me?" Vlex groaned. "Weaponized rodents, who thinks of this stuff?" "Humans," Zlathax replied grimly, "and they're very good at it." The team reached the perimeter fence where the Glorflaxian used his acidic secretions to melt through the steel. They slipped inside, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the facility. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the occasional growl of augmented animals. Zlathax led the way, his antennae twitching as they approached the central laboratory. Through a reinforced glass window, he saw what they had come to. Destroy Project Apex's control hub. Banks of computers monitored the augmented creatures, while scientists in lab coats, some human, some strangely familiar, worked tirelessly. At the center of the room was a massive stasis pod, its occupant obscured by frost-covered glass. "Is that a mecha octopus?" Vlex whispered, peering at the pod. "Focus," Zlathax hissed. "We plant the charges, disable the systems, and get out before they realize we're here." The team began their work, setting explosives on key structural supports and hacking into the facility's mainframe. Zlathax kept watch, his graviton disruptor at the ready. It all seemed to be going smoothly. Too smoothly. That's when the alarms blared. "Oh, Captain," Vlex called out, "we've got incoming!" Through the corridors came a thunderous noise, the sound of metal claws scraping against the floor. The wolves were here, their glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. Behind them, drones piloted by squirrels swarmed in a dizzying formation, each carrying small but undoubtedly lethal explosives. "Fall back!" Zlathax shouted. "Protect the charges!" The next few minutes were a blur of chaos. Plasma bolts lit up the corridors as the team fought to hold off the attackers. Vlex tossed grenades, sending drones crashing to the floor. The Glorflaxian used his acid spray to slow the wolves, though one managed to sink its enhanced teeth into his leg before being blasted away by Zlathax. As the last explosive was armed, Zlathax shouted into his comm, "Mission complete. Get to the extraction point." The team fought their way out, the facility's defenders relentless in their pursuit. As they reached the edge of the forest, the charges detonated, a massive fireball erupting behind them. The ground shook as the facility crumbled, the shockwave sending birds scattering from the trees. They stumbled into the waiting extraction pod, battered but alive. As the hatch sealed and the pod lifted off, Zlathax collapsed into his seat, his antennae drooping with exhaustion. "Well," he muttered, "that could have gone worse." Vlex stared at him incredulously. "Worse? Half the galaxy's going to hear about this disaster," Zlathax sighed. "We'll worry about that later. For now, let's just hope humanity doesn't have a backup facility." In the silence that followed, no one dared mention the obvious. Humans always had a backup. The extraction pod hurtled through Earth's atmosphere, a battered testament to the chaos they'd just endured. Inside, the strike team sat in grim silence, nursing wounds both physical and psychological. Zlarthak's Crumlink leaned back in his seat, his antennae twitching as he tried to process the disastrous mission. "Status report," he growled, not looking up. Vlex, still clutching one of his forearms, where a wolf had taken a chunk out, glanced at the display console. "Facility destroyed. Secondary systems obliterated. Collateral damage, extensive." "How extensive?" Zlarthax asked. Vlex hesitated. "Let's just say humans are going to be asking a lot of questions when they find a bear-sized crater in the middle of their forest." Zlarthax groaned, rubbing his temples. "As long as Project Apex is neutralized, it doesn't matter. They'll assume it was one of their own screw-ups. Humanity has a talent for blaming itself." The Glorflaxian, who had duct-taped his acid-sprayed leg, chimed in nervously. "Captain, what if they don't? What if they figure out it wasn't their fault? Humans are resourceful." Before Zlarthax could reply, the comm system crackled to life. "Unidentified vessel. You are entering restricted airspace. Identify yourself immediately." The team exchanged panicked looks. Vlex smacked the console, cycling through their false transponder codes. "It's a human signal. I thought we disabled their tracking systems." "We thought wrong," Zlarthax snapped. "Get us out of here before they—" The pod lurched violently as an explosion rocked its hull. Warning alarms blared and smoke filled the cabin. Zlarthax was thrown forward, crashing into the pilot's console. "They've hit us!" Vlex shouted, frantically punching buttons. "Earth's military is shooting us down!" "How do they even have weapons that can hit a syndicate pod?" Zlarthax roared. The answer became clear as the pod's sensors flickered, displaying a grainy image of their pursuer. A human fighter jet, an older model but clearly retrofitted with advanced weaponry, was closing in fast. Painted on its side was an unmistakable emblem, the Apex logo. "They've got their own air force!" the Glorflaxian shrieked, gripping his seat with all 6 of his hands. "Not just any air force," Zlarthax muttered. "This is Apex. They survived." The pod spiraled downward, alarms screaming louder than Vlex, who was now openly wailing. Zlarthax clawed his way to the pilots, controls, and barked orders. "Divert power to shields. Activate evasive maneuvers." The pod's engines sputtered as it veered toward a mountain range, the fighter jet still in pursuit. Plasma bolts streaked past them, one grazing the pod's tail and sending it into a spin. "This is it!" Vlex howled. "This is how we die! Shot down by a species that makes rocket launchers out of water bottles." Zlarthax ignored him, gripping the controls with grim determination. "Brace for impact! We're going down!" The pod smashed into the mountainside, skidding across snow and rock before slamming into a frozen lake. Ice cracked and groaned beneath them, but miraculously, the pod didn't sink. "Everyone alive?" Zlarthax groaned, prying himself off. "The console. Define alive," Vlex muttered, dangling upside down from his harness. The Glorflaxian was too busy vomiting to answer. The team stumbled out of the pod, coughing on the frigid air. Their landing site was a desolate expanse of ice and snow, with jagged peaks rising in every direction. The fighter jet circled above, but before it could make another pass, a sudden blizzard rolled in, cloaking the team in white. "Well, that's convenient," Vlex said, shivering. "It's not convenience," Zlarthax replied. "It's Earth. This planet's weather systems are as unpredictable as its inhabitants." They trudged through the snow, their gear weighed down by frost and exhaustion. Zlarthax's antennae twitched as he scanned for shelter. "We need to find cover and assess the situation. If Apex survived, they'll be looking for us." As Yvonne Q, the faint hum of drones echoed through the blizzard. Zlarthax motioned for the team to take cover behind a ridge. Moments later, a pack of wolf-like creatures, sleek, cybernetically enhanced, and equipped with thermal sensors, emerged from the storm, their glowing eyes scanning the terrain. "They're tracking us," the Glorflaxian whispered, his voice trembling. "We're doomed." "Not yet, we're not," Zlathax growled. "Vlex, you still have explosives?" "Always," Vlex replied, pulling out a device the size of a grapefruit. "Good. When I give the signal, set it off. The rest of you follow my lead." The wolves drew closer, their mechanical limbs making no sound on the snow. Zlathax waited until they were within range before leaping out from cover and firing. His graviton disruptor, the lead wolf, froze mid-leap, suspended in the shimmering field. The others snarled and charged, only to be met by a hail of plasma fire from the team. "Now Vlex!" Zlathax shouted. Vlex tossed the explosive, which detonated with a deafening roar. The blast sent snow and debris flying, burying the remaining wolves under an avalanche. Panting, the team regrouped. "That'll slow them down," Zlathax said, "but it won't stop Apex. We need to keep moving." They pressed on, finally finding refuge in a cave. The interior was dark and damp, but it offered shelter from the storm, and hopefully from their pursuers. Zlathax activated a portable heater, and the team huddled around it, their breath visible in the frigid air. "So what's the plan, Captain?" Vlex asked, his voice heavy with fatigue. Zlathax stared into the heater's flickering light. "First, we survive the night. Then we figure out how to contact the Syndicate. If Apex survived the facility's destruction, they're more dangerous than we realized." "And if the Syndicate won't help?" the Glorflaxian asked. "Then we do what we always do," Zlathax said grimly. "Improvise." As the team settled in for the night, the blizzard outside intensified, howling like a living thing. Deep in the cave, the faint hum of unseen machinery echoed, a reminder that Apex was out there, relentless and watching. Earth wasn't letting them leave without a fight. The storm raged outside the cave, its howling winds muffling all other sounds. Inside, Zlathax and his team huddled around the portable heater, tension palpable in the dim, flickering light. No one spoke, their eyes darting to the cave's entrance every time the wind shifted. The faint hum of Apex's drones was a constant, reminder of their peril, a menacing undertone that set everyone's nerves on edge. Zlathax studied the team, assessing their injuries and morale. Vlex was fidgeting with a grenade, his scaled fingers moving too fast for comfort. The Glorflaxian was trying and failing to patch his acid-scorched leg, his 6 hands shaking. Even Zlathax, usually a paragon of stoic determination, felt the weight of dread creeping into his thoughts. Apex wasn't just a threat, it was a monster of humanity's making, and they were trapped in its domain. "We can't stay here long," Zlathax finally said, breaking the uneasy silence. "Apex will find us. We need to move before they send reinforcements." "And go where?" Vlex asked, his voice laced with frustration. "We're stranded on this frozen hellscape with no ship, no backup, and no clue what Apex has planned." Zlathax tapped his antennae in thought. "We don't need to outrun them. We just need to outthink them. Apex may be relentless, but they're still following orders. That's a weakness we can exploit." The Glorflaxian blinked all 6 of his eyes. "Exploit how?" "Simple," Zlathax said. "We hit them first." The team exchanged incredulous looks. "You want us to attack Apex?" Vlex said, laughing bitterly. "In case you've forgotten, Captain, they have drones, wolves, and whatever the hell that octopus was. We have a heater and maybe 2 grenades. This isn't bravery, it's suicide." "It's survival," Zlathax shot back. "Apex is tracking us because we're running. If we take the fight to them, we can disrupt their command structure and buy ourselves enough time to contact the Syndicate." Vlex groaned, but didn't argue further. The Glorflaxian hesitated, then nodded, reluctantly. "Fine, but if we die, I'm haunting you," noted Zlathax said. "Let's move." They packed quickly, leaving behind anything non-essential. The storm was beginning to subside as they exited the cave, the wind still biting, but the visibility improving. Zlathax led the way, his graviton disruptor drawn, and his antennae twitching as he scanned for threats. The team followed in tense silence, their boots crunching through the snow. After an hour of trudging through the freezing wilderness, they spotted it, a towering structure rising from the snow, its sleek, angular design unmistakably human. Apex's outpost was smaller than the facility they'd destroyed, but its perimeter was bristling with defenses. Automated turrets swept the area, drones buzzed in tight patrol patterns, and packs of augmented wolves prowled the snowy expanse. "Great," Vlex muttered, peering through his binoculars. "It's a fortress. How exactly do we disrupt their command structure without getting turned into space dust?" Zlarthax ignored the sarcasm. "We find their central control node. Every Apex operation needs one, a hub for coordinating. Drones and enhanced creatures. If we take it out, their forces will descend into chaos." "And how do we find it?" the Glorflaxian asked. Zlarthax pointed at the largest building in the outpost center. "There! It's always the biggest and most secure structure. Humans can't resist putting all their eggs in one basket." Vlex smirked despite himself. "Fair point." The team approached cautiously, using the storm's fading remnants as cover. They slipped past the first layer of defenses, avoiding drones and turrets with careful timing and liberal use of Vlex's remaining smoke grenades. The wolves, however, were another matter. Their augmented senses made them almost impossible to evade. Zlarthax motioned for the team to stop as one of the creatures sniffed the air nearby. The wolf was massive, its cybernetic implants gleaming in the faint moonlight. Its glowing red eyes scanned the snow, its nostrils flaring as it caught their scent. "Hold," Zlarthax whispered, raising his disruptor. "Let it get closer." The wolf stalked forward, growling low in its throat. Just as it was about to pounce, Zlarthax fired. The graviton field enveloped the creature, freezing it mid-leap. Vlex lunged forward, slapping an explosive onto its side. "Enjoy your nap," Vlex muttered, detonating the charge. The wolf disintegrated in a flash of light and sound. "That'll draw attention," Zlarthax said, already moving. "Let's go." They sprinted toward the central structure as alarms blared. Drones descended from above, their searchlights piercing through the darkness. Plasma bolts rained down, forcing the team to scatter. The Glorflaxian returned fire with his acid sprayer, dissolving a pair of drones, while Vlex tossed another grenade, taking out a turret. Zlarthax led the charge into the building, blasting the doors open with his disruptor. Inside, the halls were eerily quiet, the hum of machinery echoing off the sterile walls. They moved quickly, following Zlarthax's instincts toward the control node. When they reached the command center, it was worse than they'd feared. The room was filled with humans, scientists, engineers, and a few heavily armed guards. At the center stood the stasis pod from the original facility, its frost-covered glass now clear. The octopus was awake. It was larger than before, its mechanical arms gleaming with new upgrades. A network of cables and sensors linked it to the control consoles, its beady eyes scanning the room with unsettling intelligence. "Targets acquired," it said in a cold, mechanical voice. "Eliminate them." The guards raised their weapons, but Zlarthax was faster. He fired his disruptor, knocking 2 guards out of the fight. Vlex hurled a grenade, scattering the scientists, while the Glorflaxian sprayed acid at the cables, causing sparks to fly. The octopus roared, a sound that shouldn't have been possible, and lashed out with its mechanical arms. One of its tentacles smashed into Vlex, sending him crashing into a wall. Another swung at the Glorflaxian, who barely dodged, his acid sprayer clattering to the floor. Zlarthax fired repeatedly, but the octopus was too fast. It advanced, tearing through consoles and walls as it pursued him. Desperate, Zlarthax shouted, "Vlex, hit the explosives!" Vlex, dazed but alive, fumbled with his remote detonator. "You better know what you're doing, Captain!" "Just do it!" Zlarthax yelled, dodging another tentacle. Vlex pressed. The button and the charges they'd planted throughout the building detonated in a deafening chain reaction. The walls buckled, the floor collapsed, and the control node erupted in flames. The octopus let out a mechanical screech as its systems shorted out, its massive form collapsing in a heap of sparking metal. The surviving team members scrambled out of the wreckage, emerging into the snowy wasteland just as the building crumbled behind them. They didn't stop running until they were far from the outpost, the glow of the fire fading into the night. Exhausted but alive, they collapsed in the snow. "Is it over?" the Glorflaxian asked, his voice trembling. "For now," Zlathax said, staring back at the distant flames. "But this was just one outpost. Humanity won't stop." "Neither will Apex," Vlex groaned, pulling himself upright. "Great! So what's the plan, Captain?" Zlathax's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "We warn the Syndicate. If they won't listen, we make them. Humanity's ingenuity is dangerous enough without Apex. If they master interstellar warfare, the galaxy doesn't stand a chance." The T.O. Glorflaxian sighed. "I hate this planet." As they waited for extraction, Zlathax gazed at the horizon. Earth was a death world, but it wasn't the creatures or the environment that made it so. It was the humans, unrelenting, unpredictable, and terrifyingly inventive, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming.